Good evening. My name is Harold Mendelson, and this week the assignment is for week 8 of History 701 D02, and this has to do with writing a quick report on George Marsden's The Outrageous Idea of Christian Scholarship. Now, I've done some research on this topic and have located an article that was written by William Wood, stated Philosophy and Christian Technology. And within this article, it kind of explains what's going on with problems of dealing with developing a Christian scholarship, among other things. And basically it's because we can't get very much agreement within the Christian faith among the various sects and religions. We have the Catholics, the Greek Orthodox, and many Christian sects. Now, Mr. Marsden wrote in his book that he was speaking about why we need to improve this Christian scholarship, and shows how it is released to the public. And we're just basically not using it efficiently. Well, in order to do so, we have to come up with a general consensus of what Christian scholarship is. And there's where the problem lies. You get 10 Christians inside a room and you're going to get 10 different answers. So I understand the man's frustrations, but that's basically the way it works. So I understand his frustrations, and it's just not in the way of being resolved at this point. Now, at one time, going back maybe 100 years or so, it was a lot easier to develop some type of unity between the various sects. Basically, they separated, the Protestants separated themselves from the Catholics and just basically didn't deal with them. In the various sects, they've had some issues with each other, but usually because the various people were kind of very spread out, except in cities. So there was very much a lack of interaction between the different churches. Also, there wasn't the same kind of media that there is today. Now, starting in the 1960s, the liberal attitudes and the liberalism had become entrenched in colleges and universities. We saw that in Berkeley and Stanford on the West Coast, and Harvard and Yale on the East Coast, and many other schools also followed suit. There, at the time, there was a war going on in Vietnam, and many students became students to avoid being drafted into the Army. And as such, they were very boisterous. And we had a number of serious protests. I was in Ohio at the time when we had the shooting there, and 4 students were killed. It was ugly, but it happened. And so that had a certain fear factor into it, and a lot of students felt that they protested they would get shot. This was, as it turned out, the only incident that had that. There were also attacks by the students. Basically, they took over universities. They prevented classes from running. They prevented professors and the leadership of the universities from entering the colleges, well, the buildings. And as such, there was a lot of disagreement. Now, at that time, media was somewhat sympathetic, but not to the level that it is today. We've seen this currently, and it's gone beyond students. It's very, very evident in politics, where the Democrats and Republicans just aren't communicating very well with each other. As a result, we've just seen former President Trump's Margot location in Florida that was basically invaded by the FBI, and they were there for 10 hours. And it was interesting that President Trump was up in New York addressing the New York court system and the district attorney, and he was having actually a pleasant time with them. I mean, things seemed to be going okay, but unfortunately, we know how that goes. So we have constant battling between that. Plus, 2 years ago, we had severe demonstrations around the country where people were killed and billions of dollars in damages were done. I saw a recent, report that was done in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the riots had taken place, and nothing has been done to rebuild any of that. They've cleared away the rubble, but there's nothing there to replace them. And this is not the only place. There's a lot of other places that are in the same boat. So we first have to come together. And I don't know if that's feasible at this point. And it hasn't happened so far. Not only politically, but religiously. So we just have to see what we can do to fix that. In the meantime, I suppose we could have various sects come out with their own concept of Christianity scholarship and produce that and go with it. And there may be some conflicts there, but at least you have something out there. And perhaps that would allow a start where we can look at each other's definitions and come to some type of meaning in the middle. That's all I have for tonight, and hopefully this issue will be resolved sometime in the future, but I am not very optimistic of it. So have a good evening. Thank you.